Perdue. Here. Dwayne Cochran. Here. I'm sorry, I said Dwayne Cochran, down on this one. And Arnetta Parker. Here.
Thank you. We now would can you read the minutes based on the last meeting?
City of Richmond Heights Charter Review Committee minutes, Tuesday, March 4th, 2014. Present, Danielle Cadu, Dwayne Cochran, Stephanie Douglas, Tyrone Drummer, Donald Houston, Elliot Eisenberg, Stanley Jocelyn, Shardina Williams. Also present was Todd Hunt, Law Director, and David Lynch. Also present was Arnetta Parker, appointed as the ninth member to serve on the Charter Review Commission Committee. The meeting was opened at 6:07 with the Pledge of Allegiance. The minutes of the last meeting were read, and Stanley Jocelyn moved that the minutes be approved as read. Elliot Eisenberg second. It was voted and accepted that the minutes be approved as read. Chair Drummer submitted that the Roberts Rule of Parliamentary Procedure will be used to conduct further meetings and asked for a motion to accept. Stephanie Douglas moved that the use of the rules be accepted. Elliot Eisenberg second. Additionally, the chair introduced that a videographer will be present at future meetings and asked for a motion. Stanley Jocelyn so moved and Shardina Williams second. David Lynch was introduced to the committee and in his comments so noted that the chair did not call for a vote on the two motions entered in second. The chair then put to the committee a vote on both issues of Robert's Rules and the videographer. The vote was passed. The vote on both issues passed by unanimous vote. Council President was introduced and presented his issues and concerns for the committee to consider, a copy of which is attached hereto and made a part of these minutes. Council President's concerns included the start date of the incoming mayor and the lame duck period, and the mayor's ability and authority to be able to solely hire and terminate staff. There was a lengthy discussion on both issues. Next, Chief of Police Rowe offered his issues of concern. He drew our attention to Section 4C, to which he stated he would like to see the language changed to read that in-house candidates trained up through the ranks would be qualified to apply, and also that political subdivision of a state be used as opposed to a city or municipality. He informed the committee that he has a staff of 17 sworn officers that is down from 22, and that drop-off is due primarily to retirees. He also discussed the current jail capacity that is a 12-day hold and the cost factor in transporting detainees. The chief was asked about his own experience, and he stated that he was formerly the chief of police for the city of Warrensville Heights for 5 years. The next scheduled meeting is Tuesday, March 11, 2014 at 6:00 p.m. The scheduled presenters are the Law Director, Todd Hunt, and City Engineer, Lee Courtney. Stanley Jocelyn moved that the meeting be adjourned. Dwayne Houston second. The meeting was adjourned at 7:15 p.m. Respectfully submitted, Stephanie Douglas, interim recording secretary.
Thank you.
I make a motion that the minutes be approved as read.
There's been a motion that the minutes been approved as read. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
The way we're doing it, it doesn't allow us for any corrections or additions. We just have to approve them or not.
No, you don't. You just say nay. If you don't approve it, you just say nay.
No, I mean, but for correction or addition.
If you don't approve of it, you just say nay, and then we'll honor and
I think she's saying before the vote,
Oh.
you can ask, are there any
Right.
additions
Or are
or
there
corrections to the
additions or
minutes?
Yes, that's
And
what
then
we
so.
should do
Okay.
before the vote. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Because I do have an addition.
Okay.
I thought, I know you said that the council president, there was lengthy discussion about two items, but we also, his second item was about regarding runoffs. And that was the lengthy discussion, as I remember. So, and I didn't hear that. I know you said part of his, what he presented would be part of the minutes, but the discussion was literally on that.
The addition of
Are there any?
Call for a vote based on the correct.
Correct, yes.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, you'll need a motion to amend the minutes
Amend
based on the
minutes.
comments and a second, and then you can call for a vote on that issue.
I'll make the motion.
Been a motion for an amendment to the minutes.
Second.
Been second.
Who's second?
No. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, it's been, motion will carry. Today we have two, for the law director, the city engineer director that's going to sit with us and discuss their, job descriptions and any items that they would like to see added or deleted from the charter review. First, we'll ask Todd Hunt, our law director.
All right, thanks for having me. As I've said the last 3 or 4 meetings when I've had an opportunity to speak, I really don't have too many suggestions for revisions to the charter. I guess I've lived with it for almost 19 years now. But the one thing, and I guess, suppose I should mention the short section on the Director of Law. I guess the only provision that I think you might want to consider is some type of length of time of being an attorney. This puts no length of time on that, so someone who has just passed the bar exam in Ohio and is licensed to practice before the courts in the state of Ohio could be appointed, I suppose, as Director of Law, provided that the mayor and the council approve of that. But I think it's common to see in charters that there's at least a 5-year period of time that someone has been duly admitted to practice before the courts of the state of Ohio. That would be my only suggestion. I did not write that one up. And the second one, which I think I mentioned at the last meeting or one of the meetings, and I apologize for the short stature of my paper. The secretary put a privileged thing across here, and of course what I'm passing out is not privileged or confidential, so that's why I got out here. I said, oh no, and I trimmed it off. So I apologize for that. I'm going to keep 2 of them here. Okay. Hopefully I had enough for everybody. Okay, I'm getting all good news on my hand. It's actually-
Here's the number. Oh, thank you.
One of the things that I mentioned is that I've served some other cities and I do special service work, and this is one of the few cities that I've seen that doesn't have in its charter some authority for the mayor or chief executive officer to enter into some type of contract for the expenditure of funds without having council approval or authorization for that specific contract. It's quite cumbersome, I think, although I've been doing it here for 19 years, and that is every contract, no matter how small, has to go to council for approval. We do that generally by a resolution that I have to draft. It goes on an agenda for council, and council considers it. I just think that there are some purchases for a certain dollar amount, up to a certain dollar amount, that the chief executive officer, here the mayor, should have authority to enter into as long as council has already appropriated the funds necessary for that type of contract. When a budget is approved, when an appropriation ordinance for the year goes in, there is usually a contractual line item for each department in the city, whether it's service department, police, fire, whatever, and the mayor's administrative office. There is a line in the appropriation ordinance for contractual, and there's an amount in there, and so that's what that chief of that department, mayor, would have authority to enter into contracts, total number of contracts for that period of time, for that year. What that amount is, as you can see, I've left blank. I added that last sentence into the powers of council because that's where it says that they have the power to authorize all contracts, et cetera, and I have made an exception to that for some amount. I have seen amounts anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000. I have a city manager that has up to $25,000, but of course the city manager is hired and fired by the city council, so they really have some authority over that. The competitive bidding threshold in Richmond Heights is $25,000, so any contract that may exceed $25,000 has to be put out to competitive bid. Just as a matter of reference, of course, that does not have a lot to do with the mayor's authority, but at least that's one limit that we do have now in terms of putting it out to competitive bidding. It doesn't mean that our department heads or the mayor don't go out for quotations from various people for things under that amount. So I leave it to your discretion to, I guess, fill in that number, taking into consideration, I guess, a lot of things, and one of them is what are the voters going to think of when you put that in there. So, but we have a lot of contracts, for example, that are under $5,000. We have a lot that are under $10,000. So I know some of the cities around are at $15,000 for the mayor's authority. So I kind of leave it up to your discretion as to what you want to put.
Okay.
Again, we have to make a lot of purchases sometimes very quickly, just simply because that's the way things come up. An emergency purchase. And it's kind of cumbersome when you need to wait 2 weeks. Sometimes a council meeting will be 3 weeks away, depending on if there's a 5th Tuesday in the month. And sometimes you need to act more quickly. That would require a special meeting to be called to council just to handle a small contract that may be a very important contract. Small in terms of monetary amount. So I think that's what, the main thing that I have to bring to you. So.
Artie, any questions for?
Yeah, I have a question. Since you've been doing this for 19 years for the city of Richmond Heights, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're all new to this for like 2 months, 3 months. I'm gonna ask you what you think a good dollar amount would be for the city of Richmond Heights.
I hesitate to give that.
Why
I
is that?
really do. I think that's something that you need to weigh the various interests of the city. One is the department heads in terms of their ability to ask the mayor to make purchases and make them quickly. Perhaps council's thoughts on that, and certainly the mayor's thoughts on it. The other consideration is what you think the voters, which you may have more in tune with than others, and particularly I would be, what the voters may think when you put it on the ballot. I know that should not be your main consideration, but you do have to get this passed by the voters. So if you go too high, that might not pass most of the voters.
It's a shame.
So I
to ask
hesitate.
the voters how much.
Yeah,
Everybody will put a zero.
Put in,
A zero.
5, 10, 15, or whatever, and let them choose.
Any other questions for
Sergeant,
Stephanie?
your background prior to coming to Richmond Heights, was it working with the municipalities around here, or?
Well, I started as a law clerk at the City of Cleveland Law Department. And of course, they had about 35 lawyers at that time, they're up to about 50 now. And then I was hired by the City of Cleveland Law Department in their civil division to, did a lot of things there. I did litigation primarily, which was general litigation and tort litigation. I tried a lot of civil rights cases at that time because, as you know, government officials get sued a lot under the Civil Rights Act. I was also counsel of the Safety Department in Cleveland for 2 years, which is police, fire, and EMS in Cleveland. And I also advised all of the appointing authorities on civil service. And in Cleveland, the commissioners and the directors are actually the appointing authorities, not the mayor. So you can imagine the wide variety of appointing authorities, and that meant all kinds of advice, but particularly discipline to employees, and representing the appointing authorities in hearings for disciplinary matters for employees. I went from there to the City of Cleveland Heights, where I was full-time for almost 2 years. I did everything. I was the only full-time lawyer, we had a part-time law director, and I drafted legislation, tried cases, you name it, I did everything. And then I went part-time in Cleveland Heights and went to Walter Haverfield. That was in 1989. So I retained my part-time position in Cleveland Heights, went to Walter Haverfield and worked in the public law section, advising a lot of other communities in Northeast Ohio and throughout the state of Ohio. And in 1994 was appointed assistant solicitor in Hudson, 95 law director in Richmond Heights. Continued to have my part-time position as assistant law director in Cleveland Heights up until about 2004. Became law director, solicitor, which is equivalent of law director in Hudson, in 2010. And I'm also an assistant law director at Gates Mills at present, for 2 years. Those are my positions that I've been appointed to, but I do a lot of special service work throughout Northeast Ohio and Ohio. I have doing work for Middletown, Ohio currently, some zoning work, all over Ohio, and some collective bargaining work for the city of Newton Falls, or now the village of Newton Falls, down in Youngstown. So that's sort of my background.
Stephanie, did you have a question?
If someone should submit a request pursuant to the sunshine laws, who responds to that request? You, or the mayor, or the council? Who?
Well, we have designated records custodians, and for the council is the council clerk, for the administration is the mayor, which she then can delegate to whatever department head the particular records request is pertinent to. So that's sort of the chain of command under our public records policy. So if a public records request came to your committee, probably should go to the mayor, and then I would assist with that if necessary. A lot of public records requests do require some legal review for various things, because there are exceptions to the Public Records Act for, as you can imagine, attorney-client privilege, even to make a review to see if the request is something that is actually a public record. In other words, it's a record of the business of the municipality. The other thing you might think would be a public record are your notes that you make. They are not public record. Notes that you make here at this meeting. Your minutes are not. Anything like this would be my submission.
Do we have any other questions for Todd?
I'll be available whenever you need me, so.
Good. We appreciate you taking your time out and sitting down with us and explaining.
And I may weigh in on this guy's.
Sure.
Everybody else's.
Sure. Before we bring the city engineering reports, I'd like the mayor to come and administer the oath.
Thank you.
Oh, well. Better late than never. All right. Raise your right hand. I, Arnetta Parker,
I, Annette Parker,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
or affirm
or affirm
that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
the Charter of the City of Richmond Heights,
the Charter of the City of Richmond Heights,
and all the laws
and all the
of
laws
said city,
of said city,
and I will faithfully,
and I will faithfully,
honestly,
honestly,
and impartially
and impartially
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
of member of the Charter Review Committee
of member of the Charter Review Committee
of the City of Richmond
of the
Heights,
City of Richmond Heights,
State of Ohio,
State of Ohio,
during my continuance
during my
in
continuance
said office,
in said office,
as I shall answer to God.
as I shall answer to God.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, let's get some signatures. Okay, that's you. And then print. Wonderful, now you are official. And Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I was wondering if I might present one small thing in advance of the city engineer?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
just one thing.
We're not holding the city engineer up.
I'm not going to object.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
There's a reason why this man has been working for the city of Richmond Heights for 25 years. It was interesting that in preparation for the meeting today, actually Todd Hunt here, I had requested information from, Todd Hunt regarding the budget that we have coming up here tonight. Please tell me that I copied it. Oh, good. And I wanted to show this to Charter Review Commission. All right. Now that I have my own full attention, let me try this again. So then, when I presented last to Charter Review Commission, the first change that I recommended was for the start date for both mayor and council. If you remember, I had shown you all that the start date for the swearing in for the mayor of the city of Richmond Heights as well as council is December 1st, which is extraordinarily unusual for all the other municipalities in Cuyahoga County. I mean, I believe that you said like we're probably like one of 4 out of 58 communities that has a start date of December 1st. And remember I explained to you, anecdotally, but really it applies to theory as well, about what I went through in that month of December. Like when I came on December, because there's so many things that close in the city as of December 31st. Like there's so many hard deadlines for all municipalities as of December 31st, that I had to sign off on union contracts that I did not negotiate and knew nothing of, but I had to sign for them. Healthcare benefits, again, I had to sign off on these benefits for all the employees of the city of Richmond Heights. I had no part to the negotiation and had almost knew nothing about the details thereof. Same thing with the budget, right? So for the 2013 budget, I had to close a budget in December that I had no control of for the first 11 months of the year. Like suddenly, I owned it, right? And same thing with starting the 2014 budget. Without being able to dig in and really understand the details, I had to open the 2014 budget with a temporary budget. I think that these reasons I'm telling you are key reasons why it doesn't make much sense at all to have a mayor. It doesn't make sense for the mayor. It doesn't make sense for the people of Richmond Heights, right? It's not good for the city to have someone start December 1st. and that the date should be moved to where the other ones are located, which is January 1st. Here's something else I found to demonstrate my point. It has in our charter, which you guys are reading through now, oddly enough, under the section of the finance director, the mayor of Richmond Heights is responsible
Page
for,
15.
page 15, for presenting a budget to council 45 days before the end of the year end. That is in the charter. So, work with me. Now, of course, the previous mayor never actually did this, but let's say he did do it. That mayor is supposed to lose an election on the first week of November and have a draft of a budget ready by November 15th, and then 2 weeks later, somebody else is supposed to start. It makes no sense. I'll let you guys review this a little bit closer. Like, the timing just doesn't work at all. You can take that and pass it on. I mean, are you grasping that? So the first week of November, that person will lose an election. The second week of November, they're responsible for turning in the next year's budget, and then 2 weeks after that, the next mayor starts. That's all. Something to chew on. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it. Okay. Now we ask City Engineer Corset to join us.
Good evening.
Good evening.
The mayor's reference to 25 years has a couple clauses on it. Became a city engineer in 1972. So been around for a long time.
42 years.
I don't have any real feelings about changes to the charter. Of course, I've been through this a few times. What I would do, though, is like to explain why, if you read the charter, it might not seem to match what you see going on around you. Because the charter is appointing the director of engineering just like the director of public service. Matter of fact, they're contained in the same section of the charter. They're just separate paragraphs. Well, if you walk into the service department, you see a whole lot of service department employees, and it's pretty obvious you're in the service department. You don't see anything about an engineering department, so you come up to City Hall, you don't see anything about an engineering department. You go to the fire station, you don't see anything about an engineering department, so where are they? Well, it's because many years before I became the engineer, somebody made the decision that the charge to establish an engineering department was best handled by hiring an engineering firm to be the department. And that was the case when we became the engineers. Actually, the ordinance hiring us hires the C.W. Courtney Company and then designates me as the principal, which becomes the director of engineering, although those exact words aren't there. But that's why you don't see an engineering department. If you want to see the engineering department, you'd have to go out to Beta Drive, and you would find that, although it might not say it, it's the engineering department for Richmond Heights, Hunting Valley, Gates Mills, Chardon, and Brooklyn, along with private developers and anybody else that needs our services. So that just gives you a little bit of the background on it. As I say, if you read the charter, you would think we would probably be down at the service garage just because of the way it's grouped. But we probably work just as closely with the building department, just depending on which task it is. And we're joined on one hip by the law department and on the other hip by the finance department, so there's very little that happens independently. And there's some things about that that are real good because it gives some continuity if you change one department. There's quite often a lot of knowledge in the other departments about what they've been doing because nobody acts independently. Maybe in a big city, but not in a small city. So, other than that little bit of background and why what you might read in the charter might not seem to be what's happening, that's the answer. It's simply covered in the administrative code as saying the engineer's hired by ordinance. And that's what it says, and it doesn't elaborate, it just says that's what it is. And that is quite often the case for small suburbs. Probably a lot more do it that way than don't, although I can't speak to what their charters say. And other than that, I'm open for questions about the engineering department or the type of work that we do. I mean, besides interfacing with the other city departments, there's the Cleveland Water Department, the Regional Sewer District, the Cuyahoga County Department of Public Works, and any resident who happens to have our phone number.
Yeah, the charter does provide that council shall provide by ordinance for the organization thereof, meaning both the Department of Engineering and Construction and the Department of Public Service and Properties. So they've done that by ordinance in terms of approving a contract with an engineering firm. And of course, there's a lot of duties set forth in the charter for the Department of Engineering, most of which involve construction projects, public improvement projects, but council also has the authority, as well as the mayor, to designate or assign other responsibilities as required. And so both the mayor and council have done that over time. Council by ordinance, Lee's involved in a lot of review of private projects in Richmond Heights, other than not only projects that require public improvements such as streets, sewers, water lines, etc., but just general site plans of private building construction, grading plans, I guess you name it, by ordinance.
There's very little you can build around here unless it's a small addition to your house that at some point we won't get involved. And that's because the building department's in charge of the building, but the installation of the utilities, any parking areas, if it's a commercial building or a multifamily building, tying into the utilities in the streets, those are all going to require engineering review. And as a matter of fact, as far as sewers go, Cuyahoga County Department of Public Works Sewer Department won't even approve a plan for Richmond Heights unless they see that the Richmond Heights engineer has already approved it.
Does the committee have any questions for Mr. Clinton?
Just a curiosity thing. You go in on parking lots and such. Now, you spend time, and is that billed independently to the city? Can you do that?
Every separate project in our bookkeeping has a separate number and the billing is separated. If it is a proponent wanting to build something, they are supposed to put up a deposit before we work on the project. And then when we submit a bill to the city pays us and they get reimbursed out of the deposit. Now, it doesn't always happen in that order because a lot of times everything's in a rush and the check's in the mail sort of thing. But in theory, every time we're working on a private development for the city, the cost of the city's zero.
Okay. There was some indication that those fees were being returned to the parties who were doing the construction.
Well, presumably if they put up $1,000 deposit, we don't bill $1,000 for that job, we bill it hourly. And if the bill came to $725, then the difference would be refunded.
What happens if it's more?
Then they get a bill. Not from us, from the city. And that's one of the real challenges, is making sure that building that's processing all the permits, finance that's processing the money, and we who are doing the work are all working on the same page. It doesn't always come out exactly that way, but we try. No, but I have it right on my desk at home. We are meeting tomorrow, if the weather doesn't change our plans, with the County Community Development Department, just to try and make sure we're up to speed on all of their updated regulations.
Okay. We're looking at the 21st.
If the weatherman's right, that meeting may very well go.
That's what Phil said.
Do we have any more other questions? Okay, I want to thank you, Mr. Courtney, for taking your time and submitting
If
this.
anything comes up, you know how to get hold of me.
Thank you, Lee.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I guess at this time we'll ask anyone in the audience or the public if you have any questions or comments for the committee or. Okay, thank you.
I would suggest that maybe we should go in and look at some of the charter problems, if everybody has reviewed
The charter.
their. May want to take that from the front page and just go through. Pick it up on page 5.
Is this where it was left off a couple weeks ago? Stan?
I don't think we really went into it very much. The interesting thing on page 5 is right in the article, the name of the city is Village of Richmond Heights. This is a technical problem. No longer a village. It actually repeats the correction, but I should think it should be cleaned up now. You don't have to repeat something that was corrected years ago. People don't care if it was corrected or not anymore.
So we're looking at the word village and
Right.
removing village. And
It would actually take a little less than 2.5 lines.
Yeah.
It would just go down and say, incorporate it under the name of City of Richmond Heights, period.
Is that something that's gonna have to go on the ballot?
Probably
yes, all revisions.
modification.
Amendments,
How many
modifications.
things do you think we're gonna have on the ballot?
Oh, no.
Well, we don't know at the moment, so that's why we discuss
Actually, the
it.
aim is to find out how many things there are
Right.
and see which ones are important.
Right,
All right,
right.
Yeah.
So we'll acknowledge where it says shall be known as the City of Richmond Heights, period. And
City
we're
of Richmond Heights, yeah.
Richmond Heights, period. And we're looking at removing from and whenever in this charter the word village appears, it shall be constructed to read city, and the provision of this charter shall apply whether this municipality is a village or a city. So I think we should all mark them.
Yeah, it boils down to 1.5 sentences. Municipality now existing in the county of Cuyahoga, state of Ohio. And is known as Richmond
That's the
Heights,
City of Richmond Heights.
City of Richmond Heights.
Okay.
And that should be period, and that should be the end of the sentence, I guess.
Right.
End of that paragraph.
Right.
So for the record, these are suggestions and
Right.
discussions. Article 2, boundaries. Do we have any questions or concerns? In And the form of government,
It's all done, it's done by law. Question is whether or not they're, on page 6, under section 2 powers, whether anything should be changed.
your question was?
No question.
No question.
Whether anybody else has a question.
It's a question in the powers. Okay,
No
we'll move
question.
down to Article 4, the council. The composition of term.
That should be okay. Maybe a question on the term.
Well, there's questions on term limits.
Right.
Uh,
Some question as to whether you want to elect council people for 2 terms, or they can't succeed themselves after 2 terms.
And B, term. All members of council shall serve terms commencing on the first day of December.
You want to change that to January? That'd be the same.
Be the same as
the mayor.
the mayor. They both will be, will commence on the first day of January.
Is there any discussion on the term limits situation?
I have some questions about time limits.
Sure.
And time limits are a wonderful thing.
Okay. That's the reason why we're trying to do it.
But there's conjecture. Richmond Heights is a pretty small city. It's 2 miles by 2 miles, and some people say, well, after 10 to 15 years, you kind of run out of people, or people interested in holding an office. But then on the opposite side, if we have the right attitude, the right frame of mind, you go in, you do your job, you do the best you know how, and you go home, right? You're out of there after 2 years, 4 years, or whatever.
And
Well, it's
some
4-year
people-
term.
It's
4-year
4-year
terms.
Yeah, and some people have it so that, you have to sit off. You can come back, but you must take that,
Must take
4 years.
that 4-year break. Right.
Okay, but that's not in here.
No, it's not.
And so that's.
I mean, but that's the answer,
Yeah.
that's solution for the problem you just presented.
Oh, yeah, our founding fathers didn't want to stay in office. They wanted to go to their farms and homes and their families, right? Someone into these positions for earning $1 or prestige or whatever comes with it, I think they're there for the wrong reasons.
I think that there are enough people that are retired or close to retired that would actually like to come on council. And I think that what has happened is it's never been made available to them, and I don't think they ever really thought about it. Nobody ever approached them to be a council person or to do anything with the city. So, I think we need to show the limitation on the terms, and that in itself will help other people understand that there are potential slots that they can be elected to.
So did you have a time for term? Did you have?
Well, the length of the term would still be 4 years.
Right, but
You
did
would
you say
have
how many
two-
consecutive?
Two consecutive,
Okay.
and then they have to stay out for at least 1 term. Okay? That also gives you fresh blood.
Okay, is any other discussions on the term? term limits or?
Okay, repeat that one more time,
Yeah.
okay?
Okay, they can hold 2 consecutive 4-year terms.
At most, right?
Right. Well, they can hold two consecutive 4-year terms.
Mhm.
And after that, they have to be out for a minimum of 1 term
Okay.
before they can come back and be reelected.
What do you think? I agree with that 2 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago.
3 weeks ago.
When we first discussed it.
It's getting a little more positive now.
Okay, so section 2, the awards. Any questions on the awards?
No,
Any
that's,
concerns?
that should be fine.
Boundaries? Our next one is section 3, qualifications. Any highlights or?
Well, we continue to refer to gender in here. And, that was brought up a few weeks ago.
That's in the section of qualification.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you want to change that to a person.
Any debate on the gender or the,
You may have a problem all the way through. If you look at down in paragraph 2 between there, saying his term and his elected office, in some places it's he, other places, you can't just leave it with one word. You can use person in some of it, but
we could write that in and revisit that.
You used to work at, where'd you work? No.
yeah, I was just thinking the
Yeah.
same thing.
And they had a union there, right?
Mhm.
Did you ever read their contract?
Oh, yes.
Okay, and at the beginning of the contract, it has a little paragraph referring to the whole book, gender,
Oh,
where he
Sin-
is,
sincerity
where he is
clause.
used.
Yeah.
You could have that for the charter,
Yeah, it's sincerity clause.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you could have that for the charter instead of changing everywhere where it says he to he, she, or whatever. At the beginning of the charter, you could,
That's a good suggestion.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, good idea.
Thank you.
That would probably have to go in very early on this. You're probably in somewhere on that.
how about, so you see where the first page is, where it says editor's note?
It's gotta be, yeah, that's good. It could be put in as an editor's note. I don't know that we can use that as a charter amendment though, because it's a note.
Yeah, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Dave.
Provision of gender neutrality is the way it's frequently done, and then it covers the whole charter that way, and that's really the preferred methodology to achieve gender neutrality, the kind of clause you're talking about, as opposed to any other methodology.
So it would be okay to have it at like the beginning, like for editor's note or something like that?
Well, it would be actually provision in the charter.
It's an
Okay.
article, it have to be one of the articles, probably should be, maybe it should be the first article. Just make it the very first article. Well, I think we're getting into another problem, because we're changing the article numbers.
Right.
By doing that, it should be probably put in as a paragraph B. Do the paragraph A and find the paragraph B. That paragraph is B to match it. You could probably do it under, go down under 3, Article 3, Section 1. Okay, make the municipal government presented by this charter shall be known as the mayor council form of government. So it's already setting up concepts. So make that an A, and make the other thing a B. And that would prevent changing article numbers all the way through.
I don't know if I'll have to repeat that for you.
Page 5.
In section 4 of government powers.
Mr. Chairman, one other point of order. Article, section 15, at the end of the charter, under Article 15.
What page?
It's, well, my copy unfortunately is business, but it's section,
Page 33.
there's a provision under interpretation of charter where you could probably find a way to insert language related to that as well.
Yeah.
Miscellaneous provision, interpretation.
Yes.
That'd be good. That'd be a good place. You think it's better to put it there than in the front of it?
I think so. Frequently, those sorts of provisions, savings clauses, interpretation of charter clauses are the sort of catch-alls that come towards the end of the document for the purposes of creating the kind of intent that's been expressed here this evening.
So what section?
It's on page 3. Section 4.
Section
4, interpretation of charter.
Okay. So we don't have any questions, qualifications, B, C, 1, 2, 3, and D, under qualifications. Okay. We'll move on to section 4, salary and bonds.
I think those are pretty much set up all.
Section 5, meetings.
There's a problem under paragraph 1. And that's where the council takes away the power of the mayor for appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of an employee.
It actually conflicts with other charters.
Right.
Where is that exactly?
This is
Number 1,
verbatim.
section 5, meetings, number 1.
This is verbatim from the Ohio Sunshine Law as exceptions. And I could see where there might be situations where the council may want to consider those things. It doesn't mean that they necessarily would have the authority to do certain things with respect to appointments, dismissals, etc. So I guess I would suggest that it be kept in, that is what the Ohio Revised Code says is an exception to this, to the open meetings law and the reason for an executive session. Whether it's absolutely necessary in every situation or not. So doesn't grant any powers to appoint.
You know, this is just for
Doesn't grant any
meetings.
powers to
These are for meetings and,
dismiss or discipline. It simply is an exception to meeting in public to discuss these things. So if the mayor wanted to discuss the dismissal of the law director, she can do that in executive session if she wishes, if she wants to discuss that with council.
All right, so that's not absolute.
okay, section 6, quorum. I think that's,
Go back up for a second. I just wondered, does the city have a standard reimbursement form that they use for expenses?
I don't know the answer to that because I never asked for reimbursement. I'm sure they do. I'm sure the finance department has a form. I think so, for like, see some head shaking back.
Dwayne,
The
do you have a
handshake was just,
question?
yes, there is such a
Yes,
form.
there is such, okay.
Well, I'm still not fully understanding meetings and number one. So maybe someone can just kind of go over it again with me, because I'm, for some reason, it's not soaking in.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, David.
if I could, this is sort of taking off a little bit what Todd said. This entire section is designed to indicate to you when the city council can hold an executive session. It's not a granting of any authorities or powers, it's merely saying that in certain circumstances, city council can have an executive session which is not open to the public. And it's in order to protect certain things, as the law director indicated under the revised code, that are deemed to be protected from being done in a public forum. First one talks about employment matters. Second one talks about the purchase of property, which makes some sense because if you're trying to figure out how much to bid on a piece of property the city wants to pay for, that you don't want to publicly let them know what your strategy is. The third one refers to conferences with a lawyer. Of course, the council should be able to talk to its law director about legal issues without someone who's getting ready to sue the city knowing what that's about. The fourth one is, of course, labor negotiations. And again, you don't want to plan your strategy in public. And the fifth one just refers to other matters that are supposed to be kept confidential. And of course, the sixth one talks about security details, which makes an awful lot of sense because when the president comes to visit, I don't think we want the public to know what our security plans are. So that entire list, laundry list of things is just the revised codes, elicitation and the city accepting its charter, the appropriate times when the city council can convene an executive session that is a non-public forum. And the courts, generally speaking, have supported the revised code sections, which again are repeated in your charter. That's the only purpose of that section.
Thank you, David.
Sure.
I think at this moment we'll table this until the next meeting. Danielle, Stephanie, if you want to put down section 6, that's where we left off.
Mr. Chairman, one other point of order, if you're going to, I presume getting ready to move on to adjournment?
Yes.
Okay. You went into some substantive discussions, you didn't pass anything, but you actually had some discussion today. And the purpose of the way the agenda was drafted was so that the public could respond to some of the things that you've talked about before a meeting adjourns. So even though you went into public session before, since you went back into discussion again, I would ask if you give the public an opportunity that may be present to comment and on any of the other things you may have said after your first public session before you adjourn.
Thank you, David. Would the public like to comment on or have any input on the discussion that the committee just had? Yes.
I'm Deborah Farmer, 312 Claymore Boulevard. I have a question about your conversation relating to terms. I thought I heard you say that a council member could serve 2 four-year terms consecutively, and then would need to step off for 4 years, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So would this go into effect with the next election scheduled in 2015, that you would have the majority of your ward representatives not eligible for re-election?
I think that's a good point and welcoming points. We haven't made any decisions on when they would start, but we would sure, listen and place this in our information and have a discussion about that. We appreciate you.
Yeah, because my question is really about time served already. So would that qualify as meeting the maximum requirement for those that are sitting currently that would have reached that 2 consecutive terms by the election in 2015? And then my other question relates to individuals that step into a term that's vacated. How is that time tracked?
If they're elected to 2 individual terms, that would just be a little longer situation. You're talking about elected to 2 four-year terms.
So in the event that someone vacates a position and someone's appointed to the position, and so they serve half of that term, that's 2 years, it could be a year, it could be 3 years. So how is that time tracked? Does that count towards, or is it?
No, it does not, because they weren't elected to that position, they were appointed.
Okay, so then that'll be clearly indicated in the revision.
Well,
Yes.
Yes.
I'm just asking the
Yes.
question,
Yeah,
for
we welcome that.
clarification
And thank you.
purposes.
Yes.
Good
Yes.
point.
That's a good point, yes, we welcome that.
Because they weren't elected,
Exactly.
so that would not count.
So, that should be added in.
But we under
Non-elected
our,
members.
on our charters here, we stopped before we even got to the point to discuss the vacancies in council. So that would probably, if we were to continue talking, that would be next Tuesday probably, because it's right there.
This section
We ended
is
right
section
here and
6.
it's right there.
Yes, Councilman T.
My name is Frank Lentine, I'm the newly appointed Ward 2 councilman. I want to thank you for this opportunity. 2 comments and just a thought. I've been on both sides of the coin, I guess to say. I served on council for 12 years, back from 78 to 90. Those were 2-year terms. Everybody was up at the same time. Now 2 years is not a very long time. You no sooner get elected, you're campaigning again. One way, that's a good thing. It keeps you to the residents, and they get their input to you real quick. You also talked about changing the terms back to January 1st. I was on that side of the coin also. We used to have it to January 1st. That lame duck period is very serious time. Sometimes the people that are changing office, they get along and they cooperate and they show you where the doors are, and where the locks are, and where the typewriter is. Sometimes they don't. You can't find a place to hang your coat. So if you have 6 weeks, or whatever that time period is, that's a long time for nothing to really be moving. So I guess what I'm saying is that I suggest that perhaps the term December 1st really is a good thing. When I was on, I didn't think it was, because I got cut short a whole month. But it certainly made sense after I sat back and looked at it. The 2-year terms, or the talk about getting reelected, or term limits, if you have somebody that's really doing a good job, if you have somebody doing a real bad job, 4 years is too long. If you have somebody that's doing a good job, the people will let you know. They'll let you know one way or the other, and that's how you get elected. This still is a democracy, and if somebody's doing a good job, and the majority of the people in that particular ward or city office that you're running for, that person should be able to get elected as often as he possibly or she possibly can. That's just my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Lentine, according to Ohio statute, the way it's worded in here for, when a mayor is voted into office, they begin on the 1st of January. What I'm going to do is I'm gonna go into all the different cities, and I am going to see how many of these cities start on January 1st, and how many of them start on December 1st. And I will make a list, and I will have that available next week. I'm gonna check into that, because Ohio statute is January 1st. A lot of cities do it January 1st. This city does it December 1st.
And we extended an invitation to all of council.
Yes.
Are we to consider this as your presentation?
Uh,
Will you come again?
I'll be back. But thank you. But
Now,
thank you.
He's got an invite.
Yeah, now she asked that question, would you mind coming
Oh, I'd be more than glad.
next Tuesday at 6 o'clock?
Well, the problem is I work till 6, so I'll be here.
Okay.
I'll be here as quickly as I can from work.
We'll just have you second, that'll be number 2.
Quick.
We'll have you the second person, that'll be around 6:30.
That'll be fine. I'll be more than glad to talk to you folks.
Thank you.
I think it's important. There's many things that, believe it or not, does come up. I mean, you look at some of these items. One suggestion that I would like to make though tonight is that, I think this gentleman was asked the question of how many issues are you gonna put on the ballot? I firmly believe the more you put on, the less chance you're gonna pass anything. The general public, from my experience, they start looking at things, and when lawyers start writing it up
Yep.
legally,
Yes.
I agree.
I stop reading and I say no.
Absolutely.
Now, I know that's not right, and I know that's not the most educated way to go about it. But trust me, you see 3, 4, 5 items on the ballot, and it starts getting to be a 2 or 3 paragraph with a lot of whereases and a bunch of numbers. The general public, in my opinion, will ding everything. And you're gonna have some very good points that probably should be considered to be passed. And I hate to see that be lumped together and discarded because of that reason. I may be wrong, but that's my experience.
As a committee, we're looking at each section, and we're in information gathering at this moment, and what we're doing is reviewing and...
I realize that you folks have a
Yes.
tough job. It's a big charter, it's a lot of questions, and
But we welcome each and every one of your comments, you're really welcome. Artie, any other questions?
No other questions? There's nothing else to do today?
No, there's nothing else.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
The next meeting will be Tuesday, the 18th, at 6 o'clock.
Second the motion.
Right fast, girl.
Tuesday, the 18th, at 6 o'clock.
Yeah, I was waiting, but yeah.
It's been moved and seconded that this meeting be adjourned. All in favor? All opposed? No opposed?
Here.
Oh, okay. So